Hey friends, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to bring you today's episode. My guest speaker, Amy, was awesome to record with. She's kind, smart, professional, and is so easy to talk to. We recorded for over an hour, and then after we wrapped up the episode, we continued to chat because talking to her just feels effortless. I hope you enjoy this segment. Please meet Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy. I am 34. I have two stepkids and a husband. We live in Las Vegas, Nevada.
How long have you been married?
My husband and I have been married since 2016, so five going on 6 years. This year will be six.
Okay. And you had mentioned to me that you were a former military spouse. Um, where did you originally meet your husband? He was in the service at the time of meeting, correct?
Correct. My husband and I met through a mutual friend when I was living in Puerto Rico. He was stationed in Georgia. My entire family is from the South Georgia area. Most of them still live there. So we met through a mutual friend just for a weekend when I was at her house helping her paint, I think. I think I was just looking for an excuse to get out of my parents' house on my break. But we ended up meeting and we kept in touch, and now we're married.
And he was getting ready to deploy at the time.
He was getting ready to deploy. I believe that one was I want to say 5 or 7 month deployment. But my terms for my contract in Puerto Rico were 10 months at a time. So we were both kind of getting ready to like be gone for a while.
Can I ask what it is that you did in Puerto Rico?
I started out as a line cook, and I was, I guess, promoted to sous chef at the end of my first season. And then I ended up staying there for about 4 years, but I basically ran my boss's restaurant. She was the executive chef, but she wasn't really in the restaurant much. So it was pretty much just me kind of running the restaurant while she got to kind of vacation for a couple of years.
That sounds nice. How long have you been in the food industry?
I have been working in the food industry in various jobs since I was 14. So this is actually year 20 for me. I started out as a hostess at a local restaurant, family-owned restaurant. I went on to work at a country club in college. I worked at some bars, nightclubs in college. And then after I decided to drop out of traditional college, I ended up going to culinary school in New York.
What initially brought you to this industry? Did you start off as a host and then you had an interest in kind of the food industry, or were you always interested in cooking?
I would say I was always a little bit interested in cooking. I grew up in the South, so Southern grandmas, Southern moms, like they cook 24/7. They cook all the time, every day. It's just how we do things. But in college, I kind of started to notice that if I was having a good day, I wanted to cook. Or if I was having a bad day, I still wanted to cook. Like it didn't matter what my mood was, it still revolved around either making food for myself to make me feel better, cooking for my friends, neighbors to celebrate something, or we're just vegging out. If somebody had a bad breakup, it didn't really matter what we were doing. I was always cooking.
I wish I had that trait. So tell me a little bit about your career now. Talk about some of your accomplishments.
So currently, I am a private chef for a local celebrity. I am running my own business. I started my own business in 2020, and I'm also consulting on a restaurant that we are looking to expand here in the next couple of months.
What was starting a business like in the beginning of the pandemic like?
Starting a business in the middle of the pandemic was like trying to herd cats. Um, Nobody was in their office. Nobody knew whose office you should be emailing. No one was even remotely concerned about food service. Everything the health department was dealing with, which is who you have to go through, was about COVID and testing and protocols and all of that tracking and all of that stuff that was, very early on in the pandemic. No one was setting up business licenses. No one was setting up kitchen spaces for people to, move in and start cooking. Nobody was doing, they're called site reviews. Nobody was doing site reviews for you to get your health department inspection. None of that. Everything took probably 2 to 3 times longer than it really should have. So it was pretty hectic, but I also didn't really have much else to do.
I want to talk a little bit more about this hot sauce business that you named Saucy. What got you interested in hot sauce?
When I lived in Puerto Rico, they have seasonal fruit, obviously, that they try to utilize better than we do here in the mainland USA. So there's a lot of passion fruit that are available for like 1 or 2 months out of the year. And there's a lot of it. Like it's astronomical how much these trees produce in a short amount of time. And then you're kind of stuck with, what do I do with this? A lot of the restaurants will do like bar drinks or mixers, stuff like that, salad dressings. They'll put it in desserts, but nobody was really doing hot sauce. So my boss brought in a case of habaneros and she was like, yeah, figure it out. Like make something. Put some tomato sauce in there, put some passion fruit in there, put some peppers and onions and some herbs and make it work. So that's kind of where this all came about. I started making it there and we used to sell it out of the restaurant. But when I moved back here, I used to make it for family and friends. We did it for our wedding as a wedding favor. Everybody got little bitty hot sauce bottles that had like our name and our wedding date on it, and everybody loved it. They're like, where can we buy this? Even some of my husband's friends that I had never met until our wedding, they were like, where do we get this? I need more. And he was like, my wife makes that. You can't get it anywhere else. So I always knew that I wanted to kind of pursue that. It's just pretty daunting to try to start a condiment line. Not only are you having to cook, but you need production licenses, you need a facility, all of that if you want to go like really mainstream. For now, I have opted to keep it more artisan, small batch, so that I'm touching every single bottle before it goes out. I make it, I bottle it, I label it, I ship it. I know where it's going, I know where it's been. There's nothing about the process that I don't have my hands on.
Is the hot sauce business something that there's a lot of competition in, or have you kind of like monopolized that for our area?
There are at least two others that have legal, legit businesses running hot sauce in Las Vegas currently. I know at least one of them. I think they both use a co-packer, which is not what I do. So their process is slightly easier, but the costs are upfront, right? You have to find a co-packer that will make your recipe when you say it. They'll do all the testing for you. But for me, I didn't want to go that route because I don't want to hand my recipe over to anyone. And I want to be in control of that step-by-step process. I want to be controlling how many are produced to make sure that people are getting the freshest product possible. With mine, we add in fruits or vegetables after the cook time. So that's an additional permit that you need from the health department. And no one, there's no guide to this online. Nobody's going to tell you this information. It's all trial and error. So that's an additional permit. Your labels, if you are labeling legally, they have to be approved by the health department. The font size has to be a certain size. Certain things have to be in order of, you have to have your address on there. Once you hit a certain amount in revenue, that's when you have to have nutritional facts. That's an additional permit and testing process. You have to have pH testing done. So nobody tells you this stuff, right? It's really just trying to network and find out who you can talk to. I reached out to so many of the people that do hot sauce already, and they're like, we use a co-packer. That's it. or we're not willing to talk about it. Okay, like, all right, So lots of trial and error, lots of time spent, proverbially knocking on doors like, how do I do this? What do I do? I want to be legal and legit. Help me.
Yeah, this sounds like a pretty complicated process. Were there ever any times where you were like borderline ready to give up?
I think, I mean, giving up was never really an option. I knew I was going to do this. Honestly, I have thought about waiting to see if we ever leave Las Vegas to potentially look into my husband and I have toyed with the idea of moving to Florida so I could be closer to family. But I think the laws there are less strict. So with Vegas, obviously we have huge casinos and they all have restaurants. Like our health department is overloaded. We have a large county. It's all the same like umbrella of people. So there's just a lot of restaurants and food service that need attention and not a whole lot of people to give that attention. So I wouldn't say that I've contemplated quitting. It's just I've contemplated like putting it off. But I really enjoy it. It's something that I honestly like on days that I have to make hot sauce, I don't feel like I have to make hot sauce. I'm like, ooh, today I'm gonna go make hot sauce. Like this isn't really work to me. It's enjoyable.
That's awesome. I think everybody, that's kind of the goal, is to have a job that they don't really feel like they're working.
Yeah.
So, in addition to, well, first I want to ask, so on Saucy's website, you guys state, I'm just quoting from the website, each of Saucy's flavors has its own story and identity. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So the the story behind each sauce is really more or less about places that I've lived. Um, the passion fruit habanero was obviously born and bred in Puerto Rico. That was a huge part of my life. The tomatillo apple flavor that I have going on, that one's kind of a mesh between my time in New York and my time here in Nevada. Apples are super big in New York. They're super seasonal. Everybody does crazy things with them when they're in season. You can go pick your own apples. But then when you talk about Nevada, like a lot of people are really into like hatch chilies. A lot of people, there's a lot of like Tex-Mex, Hispanic influence here. So that one's kind of a mesh. My next flavor is gonna scream Georgia all day, every day. It's gonna be the fruit component is gonna be peach. I'm playing with Thai chilies. It might not be the only pepper that we do because I want this one to be really, really hot. So that one's in R&D right now. And then I have another one that is gonna be pineapple. I just don't know which kind of I haven't actually decided on pineapple. That's the one I'm going to test next. But I don't know which direction I really want to go with the peppers on that one. But it's really more or less about places that I travel. I get inspiration and I'm like, oh, I want to turn this into a hot sauce. We recently visited Hawaii last year for the first time as a family, my husband's side of the family, and pineapple's obviously everywhere. And it was like, oh, how do I turn this into a hot sauce? So that's kind of what I do. Like, I want to travel places and figure out how do you put that in a bottle and sell it.
I really love that idea. I think I'm in love with the hot sauce before I've even had any. All of your influences from places that you've been is just very creative. I like that. So in addition to having your own business, you're also a private chef. And we had some questions come in from listeners who are also curious about that part of your job, if you're willing to answer some of these.
Let's do it.
Okay. Did you have to make a test meal to get your private chef gig? And if so, what was the one that you made?
Yes. For this particular client, it was slightly more daunting. I got a message on LinkedIn and it was from an assistant. She was like, I'm an executive assistant. The household that I work for, you can Google it. Like, she didn't even tell me who it was. She was like, you can Google where I work. And we're looking for a chef. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm here. Let's chat. At the time, I had an existing client on Mondays and Fridays. I found them through, I want to even say I found them through like the neighborhood app. They live close by. I posted that I was a private chef looking to add clients. Um, and their setup was a little bit different. But for the client that we're talking about, I got a message from the assistant. She was like, okay, we want to interview you. Are you free the day before Thanksgiving? And I was like, yeah, I'm free. And she was like, okay, so it's going to be a Thanksgiving meal, appetizers, soup, salad, turkey, the whole shebang, a couple of sides, cookies, ice cream, brownies, apple pie for dessert. What time do you need to show up for all of that? And I was like, I'm sorry, like who
A
does the
week ago?
shopping? Like how many people are there? Like I have so many questions. And she was like, okay, I can meet you tomorrow at this coffee shop. And you'll be signing an NDA. Don't worry about that. It's not a big deal. And I was like, okay, like what? So for this particular family, and we've hired a second chef since then, just due to all the craziness. I'll explain that later. But even he was like, I can't believe your test meal was Thanksgiving dinner for 9 people by yourself. And I was like, yeah, it was.
So it wasn't even the client's idea for you to do this whole spread?
Yeah, it was. They were looking for somebody to essentially cook Thanksgiving meal. And if they couldn't find somebody that was interested in the job long term, at least this like satisfied their, holiday meal. So that was my test. And then after I passed, they're like, yeah, everything was great. Do you want to come back like later this week? We just need to make sure that you can cook like his steak properly. And I was like, what? Like, I just made Thanksgiving. I gotta come back again? So they were like, yeah, I'm sure you'll kill it. Just can formalities. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I can come back next week. No big deal.
Well, and you obviously aced it because you're still working for this client, but I'm glad that it worked out with this whole Thanksgiving spread. What if it was terrible? Then this is like their holiday meal.
Yeah, you're right. There should have been more pressure than there was, but like at the time, I think I was just like so like determined to kill it that like nothing really was bothering me. I was like, as long as I have everything that I need, like if my prep list and my ingredient list is correct, like I can make this work. Time constraints, I was getting a little stressed out because obviously I'm by myself. It's a lot of food to prep. But honestly, if you've ever been the person who cooks Thanksgiving dinner for your family, it was the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Was
Since,
it intimidating meeting the family?
yes, yes. I mean, I met the family that morning. I met most of the family that morning. Obviously, the primary head of household didn't show up until like right before dinner. Super nice family. Could not have like I can't ask for better people to work for. I still can't. Super sweet. They rarely say anything negative. Everything is always please and thank you. So that was kind of nerve-wracking, but honestly, by the time he showed up, like dinner was almost ready. Like it's go time. There's no time for me to be nervous about meeting him.
Were you nervous about having to sign an NDA? Have you ever had to do anything like that before?
I don't think I've ever had to sign an NDA per se. Actually, I may have one time before, but it was really just for like a day of event, like we're going to be filming in the vicinity, so you need to do that. But for the first couple of months, it was a little nerve-wracking, like, can I tell my husband certain things? If I say something in front of the kids, will they repeat it? That kind of stuff. So I was really more or less not really nervous about signing the NDA, but was I gonna violate it on accident? Like, if I tell my husband that he likes his steak cooked, medium plus, like, is that gonna violate it, or is it only, his job stuff that I can't talk about?
Right.
So,
That's kind of funny. And then if you accidentally slip up, you're like, it was an accident.
right? Like,
I
it was
don't
an
really
accident. I
know
don't know.
Do you come home from cooking all day just to cook for your own family too?
Sometimes. So it depends really on my schedule and the day. But when I was working graveyards, obviously, I rarely ever cooked. I would sometimes cook more stuff like during the day that they could like reheat, bake spaghetti, lasagna, stuff like that. When I worked a 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift, I cooked a good bit on those days. I would come in from work and just immediately cook, get dinner on the table, shower, and go to bed because I needed to go to bed early in order to be up that late. Now that it's just my husband and I living in the house, I go a week sometimes where I'll eat sandwiches, and then today is actually the first day that I didn't cook this week. So I've cooked 5 days in a row. So it really just depends on the kind of week that I'm having and how I'm feeling.
When your husband cooks a bad meal, well, first of all, does your husband cook alongside you?
I was about to say, my husband does not cook. I think
Okay.
he did before we got married because I assumed that he had to feed the children. I assume.
I mean, really, I don't blame him. If I'm married to a chef, I'm never picking up a utensil again.
Yeah, he doesn't cook. I mean, he really likes to quarterback my cooking. He'll be like, "Why are you doing it that way?" And I'm like, "If you want to do this, you're happy, you can do this. But if you're doing it, I'm gonna go sit down."
Right. What is your favorite guilty pleasure food?
Macaroni and cheese.
Oh, that's such a good one.
Maybe cheese in general, but I could eat macaroni and cheese every day and not even be mad about it.
Do you like it like that super cheesy where it's like almost liquidy with all the butter and everything, or do you add your own kind of flair to it?
I put hot sauce on it. That is a definite 100% has to. Doesn't really matter to me. The mac and cheese. I would say that I'm not picky, but like I have favorites. Like, have you ever had Whole Foods macaroni and cheese? It's pretty dang good. It's not homemade, it's not my grandma's, but it'll do. Smith's, meh. The texture's good, the taste is not that great. So I mean, but I've never had a really terrible mac and cheese. So,
I'm a craft girl. I want it like broke college student. The cheesier,
and
butterier, the
there is a
better.
time and a place for that. Like, I wouldn't turn it down.
Yeah. My husband was broke in college, and now he makes mac and cheese like it's a cuisine type of thing, and will put in like extra different cheeses to where it barely tastes like mac and cheese anymore. And I'm like, this is not what I asked for. I
Yeah.
want like, I want basic, basic, basic.
Yeah, I do that. I have a thing where I like to buy different cheeses at the store because I dream of like charcuterie plates, and then I either use a little piece or I don't use it all, and then at the end of it, eventually I'll throw in like 5 or 6 different types of specialty cheese, and that's mac and cheese today.
Hmm. What kind of food do you specialize in?
I don't know that I would say that I specialize in anything. I said this early on in my career, like if I can't make all different types of food, I don't know that I can really consider myself a good chef. And this is really important being a private chef because you work for people of different ethnicities, you work for people that have traveled typically, and you work for people that want to eat different food every single night. So if I only know how to cook Southern food, or if I only know how to cook Puerto Rican food, am I really a great chef or am I a specialty chef? And I never really wanted to kind of put myself in the genre of being like, oh, I cook Italian or I cook, you know, Spanish cuisine. I don't want to put myself into like that small of a
That's really
niche.
great. Yeah, that you don't really want to be confined by a certain genre of food. Have you had any meals requested that you were just kind of like, I don't know about this one?
No, but my previous clients used to really keep me on my toes. They always wanted a ton of food. They always wanted a lot of different types of food. And one day I was like texting him and I was like, "Hey, I haven't gotten your menu for tomorrow. Like, please send it over." And he was like, "Can we have turducken tomorrow?" And I was like, "Is this guy for real? Like, it is the end of January. There are no turkeys. If there are, it's frozen. And he wants me to debone a turkey, a chicken, and a duck and roll them up in each other by tomorrow?" Like, he's crazy. And I literally texted him and I was like, "That is not doable by tomorrow. I can't. I'm sorry."
That's pretty
And I think that
funny.
was probably the first time I had told him no because I was like stressed out and I was like, "Doesn't matter, I'm gonna make it happen." Until then, and I was like, "No, that's enough.
This is where I draw the line.
Yeah, this is it. I'm not doing it."
As a private chef, does every meal have to be per se fancy, or do you ever get requests for like a midday grilled cheese?
I would say that for me, it's dependent on the client. The previous household that I worked at twice a week, they only did dinner, so I was only there for I think it was like 6 hours a day, prepping, making everything from scratch in their house. So those were kind of fancier. We would do like a big spread, we would do appetizers, and then they would kind of go and hang out with their friends. And then we would do entrees. If I had dessert that day, we would do that later. With the family that I work for now, I'm at their house from 10 o'clock in the morning until whenever we're done. So it's not uncommon that the wife will be like, "I just want tuna fish sandwich and a salad," or "Can you make vegetable soup?" And I'll have that with some toast. It's not uncommon. Like, they don't eat these grand meals every day, all day. They're very healthy. They're very into like working out, eating right. So everything that I make for them is like casual meals, but they're healthy.
And do you have to make each person a meal based on their like requests and things, or is it just like, hey, we want lasagna for dinner, so you make one meal?
It differs. So the head of the house eats two different meals pretty regularly. It's either steak and potato, chicken and rice with vegetables. Everything was with vegetables and rice. Um, the rest of the family is a little bit different. It every Monday they have a child. He likes lasagna, so I'm happy that you brought that up. So we have a homemade lasagna almost every Monday. It has extra vegetables in it. I make the sauce from scratch. I like ground up anything that's in the fridge, really, zucchini, spinach, broccoli, whatever we have, turn that into lasagna. And he eats it at least every Monday. Sometimes there's leftovers on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and the kid just eats on that. Um, Outside of that, it's really kind of whatever they want. Right now, we have house guests. The wife's parents are in town from out of the country. So if one of them wants a regular burger, they get a regular burger. If one of them wants a veggie burger, they get a veggie burger. It's really just a call it and you can have it. If they don't think we have something, they'll be like, "Hey, when you go to the store today, can you make sure you get fish? Or can you buy this for me because I want to have this for dinner?" So, no, they're just laid back and pretty easy to kind of please. There's nothing that sometimes they eat all the same meals, sometimes they don't.
Just kind of depends on the day for them.
Yeah.
You said a few minutes ago that you work there for about 6 hours, right?
That was my previous client.
Oh, okay. But you said, so you were there for 6 hours doing like prepping and making everything from scratch.
Yes.
Was making everything from scratch pretty standard for them, or were you allowed to kind of cheat with like pre-made noodles and things like that?
For that particular client, the stressful part about them was that I did the grocery shopping right before I arrived to their house, and I really just kind of had to remember what was there when I was there, 3, 4 days ago, and hope that nobody used it.
Mm-hmm.
But most everything was made from scratch in their house. I would sometimes cheat if I knew if they gave me the menu ahead of time. I would sometimes cheat and make the coconut shrimp at my own house just to kind of get ahead. Little stuff like that, or I've had to use like a bottled chili sauce because I didn't know that they used all of the chili sauce that I needed for like the spicy coconut sauce. Little stuff like that, but most everything made from scratch.
That sounds exhausting.
It
I'm gonna
was.
be real.
It was.
And you also said that you don't like to confine yourself to certain genres of food to specialize in, but do you have a signature dish?
I like to make ceviche. Most people are like, "What's your favorite thing to cook?" And I say ceviche, and they're like, "Haha, you don't really cook that." You're right, you don't. Um, but it's still one of my favorite things to do. When I lived in Puerto Rico, my boss's husband used to go out fishing quite often for mahi, snapper, whatever, we could find. And if I could convince my boss to cover the restaurant, then I would go out fishing with her husband. We would take limes, peppers, onions, usually some sort of alcohol, champagne, beer, whatever they were drinking. I couldn't necessarily drink before I go to work, but it was always on the boat. So, I mean, it wasn't uncommon that we would cut a fish while we were out there and have, ceviche for lunch while we were still trying to catch the rest of the fish in time to make it back for dinner service. So ceviche for me is like really something that I enjoy making. I enjoy making it a ton of different ways just because of the memories that it kind of brings back.
Very cool. So your kids are 19 and 16, and you did say that they don't live in the house at the moment. When they did, how did you manage juggling being a busy working mom?
Gosh, it's hard. I mean, I don't think there's a mom in America who'll be like, yeah, this is so cool. I could do this all day long. Like, being a working mom is hard. You're always kind of faced with the decision of what happens if my kid breaks his arm? What happens if my kid gets, bullied at school? What happens if the bus is late or they have to stay extra or sports got canceled? There's always these what ifs, and I feel like your brain is like constantly 24 hours a day, just like, what if? Um, I'm thankful that obviously my husband had the kids on his own before I came into the picture, so he was very hands-on when he was here. He was military most of the time that they were living in the house, active duty, so it wouldn't be uncommon for him to be gone, a week or two, 3 weeks, a month at a time. And that's when I really had to kind of rely on my mother-in-law to fill in the gaps. She's always wanted to take the kids to school and pick them up, so that has helped. That was like her job. She loved it. It didn't matter if we were like, oh, it's okay, we'll take the kids one day. No, 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 no. That's when I get to hang out with the kids. So that was a huge help. We could count on her if, dinner had to be takeout, but yeah, I mean, it takes a village. So
Definitely. Do you have plans for any more kids in the future?
yes, my husband and I are currently going through IVF to have a child of my own. I don't know if that's a weird way to put it, but a biological child of my own.
How long have you been trying?
Um, I think trying is a funny word. My husband had a vasectomy after his second child was born, so there is really no trying. For me, it was about getting some tests done, talking to a couple of clinics here in town. I was at one clinic. I didn't like the care I was receiving. So I was like, let's kind of take some time off, figure this out. And then I got in with another clinic and it's really just jived from there. And I'm really just kind of taking it day by day, week by week, month by month. I don't really have any timelines as to when this has to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a long process, obviously, and it's daunting and it's emotional and it's expensive. So, I mean, for me, I'm just taking it day by day, not really putting a timeline on how or when. But I saw the first doctor, I think it was like end of 2019, so almost, well, about 2 years. Yeah.
Do you have to pay for each, I'm not really sure how to word this. So they take the sperm and create embryos, and then you have to do individual transfers, correct?
Correct. So the process for us is a little bit different, obviously, with him being post vasectomy. That requires a surgical procedure to retrieve the sperm. That is, it's an added cost that nobody tells you about, right? Um, and then it may not work. Ours didn't work. Ours didn't net us the results that we wanted the first time around. So we had to do this again in conjunction with my eggs being retrieved. So the first time it was just him that was on, some supplements, and we're going to try to get it out, see if there is any. Like I said, his youngest kid is 16. So this has been, they say that after 10 or 15 years, like it's permanent, there may not be any more sperm at all. So when we didn't get great results, then we tried to do like a medicated cycle, I guess, for him, where he was on medicine to, increase the sperm count or its viability. I'm not even sure of correct terminology. But then we had to do another sperm retrieval in conjunction with an egg retrieval. That one was a little bit rough. We were both on hormone therapy. We were both on medication. We were both giving each other shots. And those medicine, they're not nice. They make you not nice. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like sometimes we would be like screaming at each other and be like, it's the medicine. I know it's the medicine, but still. And it was like, we just kind of had to like look at each other and be like, this isn't us.
Mm-hmm. Did it start to take a toll on your marriage?
I think the entire process has kind of been touchy because I I mean, I don't know. I can only speak on what it's like to be the second wife and to already have children from a first marriage. There's, do the kids feel like they're not enough? Does your husband feel, you know, stressed to like give you a child, whether he can or can't? If he can't, is that going to be like a dunzo thing for the marriage? Like, and I just kind of went into this with, I tried to go with the best headspace possible. We'll try. If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Like, we do already have two great kids. Nobody's trying to replace them. For me, it was about wanting to experience motherhood, wanting to be able to parent without, you know, checking with his ex-wife, because we do co-parent pretty well with her. But I want to be able to parent a child that I don't have to, call his ex-wife and be like, here's what we think is a good idea. Do you also agree? Or what is your opinion? Like, I want to be able to parent a child that I don't have to call and ask somebody else's opinion on. And
Yeah,
as a
I feel like that's completely understandable.
and as a step parent, you don't always get that option, right? So for me, it wasn't about trying to replace the kids or, anything like that. It was not malicious at all. It was really about me wanting to have these memories that I missed out with them. When I met the kids, they were 8 and 11, I believe. It's been forever ago. But, I missed first days of school. I missed first Halloween, first steps, first word. Like, I missed all of those monumental kid things. And while I got to raise kids in a backwards order almost, I mean, I've done, driving in high school and college and all of that. I still want to be able to experience, the newborn phase and the toddler phase. So stuff like that I missed out on.
From your perspective, you mentioned that you can't speak on your husband's behalf as far as like, does he feel pressure to give you a child, or, is this kind of a deal breaker for your marriage and things? From your perspective, do you feel like he puts pressure on himself?
I think he puts pressure on himself just to be a good dad. I think he puts pressure on himself to be a good husband. Obviously, he's had a marriage that didn't go the way, you want any marriage to go. So I think there's pressure there. And also, we're both in an entrepreneurial, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, space right now. So he doesn't have a guaranteed income from the military. Well, he does sort of, but he doesn't have as much of a guaranteed income coming in from the military as what we had when we moved here. I have different revenue streams, but at any one point, like if one of them aren't producing, then I'm not making as much money as I used to either. So I feel like we're both very like financially conscious of how much this costs and how much it will cost to raise a child, and where we are financially, is different from where we were 4 years ago financially.
That makes sense. I feel like society puts so much pressure on you. Like, they try to scare you with these numbers. Like, have you seen the posts on Facebook that are like, oh, it takes $800,000 to raise a child from birth to 18 or
Yes,
something? Like,
like
they
that
just put
is,
so much fear into you about money.
it's astronomical, and it's like for me, my husband tells me this all the time. Kids are expensive. You don't even know what it costs to like buy a crib. Well, I do. But what I'm concerned with is really not buying everything new. For me, I don't know that right now, I don't feel like a second child would be on the table. I don't know. I think for me, one will satisfy the urge to have a child of my own, but who knows? But I mean, I don't plan on going out and buying like a Cadillac of cribs to use for a couple of years. I intend to get hand-me-down outfits from the rest of my family who have already had children. So I feel like there are like some ways that you can cut costs that he's just not looking at.
Yeah, definitely. They have Facebook Marketplace that has just
Exactly.
a slew of stuff that's been gently used. It might just take like a coat of paint or whatever, and you can get it for $50 and it works just fine. Or they have like consignment shops or whatever. Not everything has to be, Nike and Gucci.
Right.
You said you don't want to put yourself on a timeline for how long you plan to pursue the IVF route, especially with you guys being financially conscious, like you said. If for some reason this doesn't end up being successful, like we all hope that it will, do you plan on seeking alternative methods like surrogacy or anything like that? Or are you going to just be able to heal from this and focus on other things eventually?
Um, that's a great question. For me, I don't know that surrogacy would be the route that I would choose. I mean, I guess it sounds great, like somebody else gets to grow the baby, but for me, part of that whole missing out thing that I'm feeling was that I missed out on being pregnant and giving birth and that whole scenario. So I don't know that that would be the route that we would go. My husband is adopted, so we've chatted about adoption, but I don't know that we would go that route. I would say couple of transfer tries, and then if it didn't work out, maybe revisit the conversation. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that we've really kind of nailed down, if it doesn't work by this date, or if it doesn't work with this many transfers, like how many will we do? We haven't really discussed that.
And is the cost per transfer, or do you pay for the retrieval up front and then transfers are just kind of part of the package?
Everything is an add-on with IVF. Everything is a la carte, if you will. So at least for the clinic that I'm at, obviously I don't want to speak on every clinic, but the clinic that I'm at, there was a price for retrieval. There is obviously a price for his sperm retrieval, which is different than my retrieval, there is a cost of storing sperm. There's a cost for the embryos once they're made out of the egg and sperm retrieval. Those are free to keep on ice for a year at the clinic that I'm at. Um, but each additional thing kind of requires additional cost. I've had to have, what is it? I think three now hysteroscopies, which is where they go in and kind of wipe out the insides of your uterus, whether they have cysts or polyps or fibroids or whatever. And that was news to me. I don't see that anywhere in my family history that occurs, but apparently it does with me. So that's an additional cost. It's additional surgery. It's additional anesthesia. Those are all expensive. And then after you have, your embryos on ice, each retrieve or each transfer is an additional cost. So you pay X amount of dollars for testing, X amount of dollars for the retrieval. With his, we had to do 2 sperm retrievals. If you don't have post-vasectomy partner, then I think you just do your thing in a cup and it's not as expensive. But then there's, PGA testing or PGS testing. Are you going to test the embryos for genetic disorders prior? That costs extra money. They test each embryo for that, and it's a per embryo cost. So it really just depends on, how many were retrieved. If you didn't retrieve any the first time, you would need to do another retrieval. That's where the bulk of your cost is in retrieval. Medications for this stuff. A lot of insurances don't cover medications for this. Mine does not. So that was an added cost. I think the first round for retrieval, I think we spent almost like $4,000 on medication. That's astronomical, right? We have great
Mm-hmm.
health insurance. None of that was covered. Um, the transfer meds are slightly cheaper. I've been pricing those out, not nearly as expensive, and some of them are covered because it's more like, I think they consider it like assisted helping you stay pregnant rather than actually getting you to get pregnant. So
What was the transfer like for you?
we are not there yet.
Okay.
We are not there yet. Soon. I will say that the retrieval was not fun. Obviously, you're growing these eggs and you hope to grow many of them. But the more that you grow, the more uncomfortable you are. It's like having your period, but times however many eggs you have, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
bloating, the cramping, I constantly felt like I had to go to the bathroom, like I had to pee all of the time. But I didn't. I just was fat. And I probably, if I didn't have baggy clothes that I wore to work, people probably would have thought that I was pregnant in that phase. In the days kind of after the retrieval, it's like your body doesn't really know what to do because it was like yesterday we were fat and full, and it's like today we're empty. And it's like, it's just a weird feeling. Like, I just remember waking up feeling like I'm in so much pain from like my stomach being stretched out, but now it's not. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you explain that?
Yeah, fertility meds are garbage.
Trash.
Yeah, they're absolutely terrible. They serve a purpose, and if they work for you, that's wonderful, but the getting to that part is hell.
Yeah.
It's really just it's awful. It can be really hard working a job where your bosses don't understand or care about like fertility, pregnancy, family, things like that. Do you have any advice for women who want it all, who want to have a good career and have kids and things like that?
For me being a chef, I've always kind of kept my kids and wanting to be a mom kind of more or less out of the conversation. Obviously, everybody, I have a relationship with people that I work with. You're stuck with these people for 8 hours a day, in any standard job. As a chef, our shifts are 10 to 12 hours a day. So you're with these people all day long. And I've always been, vocal about the fact that I have kids or that I wanted more kids. But as far as like this journey, I haven't really given specifics to my work family, right? They know that I need to go through IVF in order to have kids. They know that I wanted to start it as soon as possible. I don't know that they know where I'm at in the process because I haven't really volunteered that information. Um, if someone were to ask, I probably would be more honest about it. Hey, you guys said you wanted to do IVF or needed to do IVF for kids. Like, have you gotten started? Yeah, we've gotten started. But I don't know that I feel inclined to volunteer the information
Mhm.
just because I don't want it to look like, oh, well, she can't do her job. Oh, well, she's going to be leaving, in a couple of months to take time off to have the baby. Like, I don't want it to look like it's a negative on me.
Mhm. Which is kind of sad because if you weren't a woman, that wouldn't be an issue.
Correct. And as a chef, it's a very male dominant career choice. So you're already kind of I feel like I'm already kind of looked at as like almost a liability, like, oh, she might get pregnant and drop off the face of the world for a couple of years and not come back. Or if she gets pregnant, she's going to need time off. If her kids get hurt, she's going to need to leave. So it's always kind of been a stigma that I wish I could get rid of for future female chefs, but I can only do my part, and I'm not going to not become a mom because of how other people will perceive it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely get that. So you also said that this line of work is male dominated, correct?
Yes.
So when you helped launch the restaurant in Overton, and I'm gonna butcher this name again, Kablip,
Yep.
what was that like for you? Obviously, this is like a big opportunity for you, right?
Yes. So it came about very oddly. I knew the family had purchased a restaurant that they were going to essentially renovate and redo. And at the time, there was the primary head of household, his brother, a cousin who was the chef component, and a friend of a friend that was going to run mostly the pizza side of it. I don't really have details on what happened with the cousin, but he backed out or he decided he didn't want to be a part of it. And I got a call one day. I was told to come in late that day for whatever reason. I don't even remember now. But then I get a text from the wife and she was like, hey, he wants to eat. Do you mind coming in early? And I was like, what the heck? Like, he never wants to eat early. Like, what's going on? So I was a little bit skeptical and I like walked by his office, kind of waved to him that I was here and kind of mouthed to him. I think he was on the phone. I'm gonna cook. So he was like, no, 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 come into my office. And at this point, I hadn't worked there that long. I had never been in his office. And I was like, oh no, like what's going on? Like this doesn't sound good. And he's like, oh, come in, sit down. And I was like, oh, this is for sure bad. He wants me to sit down in the office. So he was like, we started this restaurant and he like went through the whole deal and he was like, the chef person kind of backed out. What do you think about helping out? And I just kind of sat there for a second because the restaurant is not close to where I live. Like, I live in Henderson. This restaurant is out past Valley of Fire. It's near the Clark County Fairgrounds. If anybody has ever driven out there, it's not close. And I was
Yeah, it's not a
like,
typical commute for work.
yeah, so definitely outside of my normal, 15-minute commute to their house. So he was like, we need some help. And I was like, okay, like, I don't really know what that looks like for you, but what if I just consult on the project? And he was like, would you consider managing the restaurant and like moving out there? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, my husband is not going to move himself for one, but the kids either. I think we still had a kid at home then. I'm positive we still had a kid at home. I was like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, he's not gonna do that. But I'm more than happy to help wherever I can. So we came up with a consulting agreement, and I was part of the project. And then I mean, the closer we got, they were doing a lot of renovations. The closer that we got to opening, it became much more hands-on. I think I was out there for like 2 months back and forth every day, and it was like hiring and equipment and looking over the menus, setting up the POS, interviewing managers, interviewing baristas, cooks, literally anybody. Setting up the menu, costing out the menu, going over the menu with the current partners, like trying to explain how to set up the kitchen in order for it to work properly and for what they wanted. So it was a lot. And in those 2 months that I was out there every day, all day, we ended up hiring another chef at the house because I was gone. So now we split a week. I work 4 days at the house. He works 3 days at the house. And then we were asked to stay on the project for, it's essentially like a royalty fee. We'll make a percent off of, how well the restaurant does. So we both are still on the project. We both go out there almost weekly, at least one day. If I don't go out there every week, then I'll like double up the week after and go out, for a weekend. And that's kind of where we're at with that. We are looking to expand into the Vegas market, so that'll be a much easier commute.
What's been your favorite part of this experience?
The the town that we're in is great, right? There are a lot of young high schoolers and college age kids that are thankful for the opportunity. They want to do something kind of more with their life. They want to move into the Vegas stores when they start opening. So kind of watching some of these, juniors and seniors in high school who are kind of growing up almost right before my eyes. They want to stay in the industry, that has been pretty cool. Seeing the restaurant as a functioning restaurant, demoing the entire inside, setting it up in a completely different setting, that has also been super fun. Being able to create recipes that are completely my own, having them tested by, the previous partners, current partners, and being like, what do you like about this? What don't you like about this? What should I do, differently for the next batch that I let you taste? Whether it be sauces or pancakes or whatever it was that we were working on, that kind of fueled some of my creativity that just needed to be out. So the entire process has been fun and crazy and busy and everything that chefs thrive on.
So in addition to being a partner and helping open this restaurant, you are also on an online cooking competition called Favorite Chef, and you were named a favorite by the Los Angeles Clippers, which I think is so cool. Can you tell me a little bit about that competition?
The competition started out with 34,000 chefs. So it's an online competition. You post your pictures, you post your bio, and everybody kind of votes for who they like best out of that round. My initial round had, I think there were like 20 or 25 people. So you have to be in the top 5 to move on. You have to be in the top 15 of your group to move on. And it goes down by each round. After I won the first round and I was like in first place, it was kind of like, oh, okay, like I have friends that are backing me in this competition. Like I can do this. And it was, I want to say it was like a 6 to 8 week process of like dwindling down all of the people. So it was very nerve wracking. Every Thursday, it was like voting ended, and then they didn't tell you who won until the following morning. And it was crazy. Um, the final round, I really couldn't quite get out of fourth place. I was in first a couple of times, but nothing really ever like stuck for long term. But right before the final round ended, they surprised us and were like, all of the top four are coming out to Scottsdale. You're all going to get this, like, I think it was a 7 course meal with wine pairings. We all had our own hotel room at separate hotels, like car service, the whole 9 yards. We had hair and makeup before we got to cook, one of our recipes that was going to be featured in Bon Appetit. Like, it was a big deal. So, I take the magazine with me when I sell hot sauce, and people are like, oh crap, that's you. Like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
How did all this make you feel?
I was a little bummed that obviously I didn't win. Um, but super loved, super humbled that college roommates were, getting on Facebook daily and being like, go vote for my friend. She's, in this competition. Family of family, friends of family, friends of friends of friends. Like all of these people were kind of rallying behind me. My local hometown did a story in the newspaper. Like it was a big deal. And it was just super humbling that all these people cared.
That's awesome to feel supported like that.
For sure.
What are your plans or dreams for the future of Saucy?
I am planning on at least 5 hot sauces, so I have 3 more to go before I'll feel like I have a line. But I don't know if I'll stop there. I'm working on 2 more right now. I want to kind of do 2 at a time just to double up on the health department, give them 2 recipes, 2 labels to review, and be like done with them for a minute. I just don't want to keep waiting. After that, I think I want to go into barbecue sauces, but I haven't set that as like a goal that I have to check off. I really just want to have like a fully functioning sauce line. I want to come up with like chef created sauces that you could either buy in person or buy online, take it home. You have a menu that I've kind of helped you create, and it's like, oh, here's the sauce that you already need. Like, you don't have to take all the time to make these sauces. I've already done it for you. So, I don't know exactly what types of sauces I'm going to have in this line. A lot of it will be determined by the health department, what they allow me to sell, what they allow me to bottle and shelf life test. So it's kind of up in the air, but more hot sauces for sure. Probably barbecue sauce and maybe some other things thrown in.
And you said you take the magazine that you were featured in whenever you go to like sell hot sauces and things. Are you doing like vendor events or where can people find you?
Yes, so I do vendor events here in Vegas. I also do them on the East Coast. I did my first 2 vendor events on the East Coast the end of 2021, and I sold out at my first event, and I almost sold out at my second event like 3 weeks later. So, selling a lot. In 2 weeks, I'm going to do another event in Florida, and then I just did an event here last week at Page and Rye over in Summerlin. And then right now I'm looking to get on the calendar with Sin City Vendors once my event permit that they require is finalized. So some places, if you're not like sampling, they don't require you to carry an event permit if they carry one. But some vendor shows require that you carry your own so that they don't have to carry one. It really just depends, but we are starting to look for vendor events for March. My goal is to do 2 vendor events a month. I sell better in person, right? Shipping is astronomical. USPS is haphazard at best. They break a lot of my stuff. And that costs me more money. I'm never going to tell a customer like, oh, sorry, they broke it, but that's what you paid for. Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Oh, well.
Right? I'm going to send you a brand new one and it's going to come out of my own cost. So I do better at in-person events. People can taste it. That's a seller right there. My hot sauces are different than your generic off-the-shelf hot sauce. Most of them are smooth and almost like sticky or watery. Mine is almost like a salsa and a hot sauce combined. It's thick. It's pureed down so that you're not like crunching on things, but it's a thicker sauce. It has, fresh vegetables thrown in right at the end before I blend it. So there's some viscosity to it, I guess is the best word. But most people are like, I don't get it. Why would I pay this for a hot sauce? Well, I'm the only person who's touched it. Can't say that about any other hot sauce that is produced in Vegas currently.
Hmm.
I am a one-woman show. Can't say that about any other hot sauce in Vegas either. And when
And
they taste
you're,
it, they love it. I've had, I think, maybe 2 people in my hot sauce career as of yet be like, I just don't like it. Okay.
you don't have good taste then.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think your taste buds are terrible, but I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to be like, okay, to each their own. But there have been people who are like, oh, it's too hot for me. Oh, that's good, but I don't know if I would buy it. But I mean, I think I've really only had 2 people tell me I just don't like it, and that's fine.
I love the flavors of spicy stuff and hot stuff. I am a pansy when it comes to the heat. I can't take the heat. My mom thinks that ketchup is too spicy, so that should
Oh
just tell you
no.
the kind of line I'm coming from. We're we're pretty basic white ladies. But on your website, it also talks about preservation, and it says you guys don't use like the typical means to preserve your hot sauce. What does that mean for you?
Right. So with the co-packing experience, you kind of have like heat as a preservation. They pump it with additives that continue the shelf lives. There are hot sauces on the market, and I won't name anybody by names, but they add dyes into their hot sauces to keep the color vibrant. What I will say about my hot sauce is that if it's not in the concentrate, then I'm not adding it in. We just switched from a passion fruit concentrate that was produced in Puerto Rico, which I wanted to keep it there, but right due to COVID, they're not producing. So I switched to a California-based product, and there are no additives. They simply boil down passion fruit, and that's what you're getting. So the one that was produced in Puerto Rico had high fructose corn syrup in it. Some people refuse to purchase it simply for that reason, and that's okay. I get it. I don't practice that strict of a diet, but some people do. But my product is now better because I switched to a more easily available product. Um, there's another hot sauce on the market that is locally made. Their green sauce, I think it's their third or fourth ingredient, and it's like blue dye or green dye, whatever the number is. I don't put any of that in there. I don't care if my hot sauce turns a pale green 3 weeks after I make it. I'm still not going to put an additive solely based on color. It brings nothing to the table. For that, it's really more about using your vinegar as a preservation, using, your pH as your stability. You need it to be in a certain pH in order for it not to have bacterial growth. And it's really about knowing those numbers, how to get there without having to add in all this other junk that some of your commercial sauces add in.
Hmm. Where can we follow your journey? You said in a couple of weeks you're going down to Florida. Do you post your different elements to the business and things on social media?
Yes. So Saucy has its own Facebook and Instagram. The Facebook is at saucythesauce.lv. Same thing on Instagram at saucythesauce.lv. And then for the random private chef stuff, I have achefslife.lv as just an Instagram of where I can kind of post projects that I'm working on or recipes that I've made that might not contain hot sauce. So other things besides hot sauce.
And I can drop your users in the description of this episode in case anybody wants to go check them out. What, to kind of wrap up our episode, what advice would you have for somebody who is just kind of starting out in the cooking field and maybe wants to make it a career?
Gosh, be ready. It's not easy. Um, Long hours, lots of weekends and holidays. So if you're not into that life, I think my mom tried to warn me and I was like, yeah, 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 it'll be fine, it'll be fine. But I don't think you really know until you're kind of in it. Like, you might not always make it to your kid's band concert. You might not always make it to their t-ball practice or whatever because the restaurant is really running on a stigma of if we leave, it won't operate properly. And that's kind of a mind space that has been in this industry for so long that it's hard to break out of. And you don't want to be the one that says, we deserve better, right? As a restaurant group, you don't want to be the one person who's like, no, my kid's t-ball practice is more important. Because then you're kind of looked at as like the weak link. It's this debilitating stigma of you have to be there in order for it to be successful. And chefs work long hours, cooks work long hours, dishwashers, servers, managers, we all work long hours. So buckle up if you're looking into this.
Do you feel like there's a double standard? Like you said, you can't just like call out of the restaurant if your kid has something going on. Do you feel like there's a double standard between men and women having that same issue? Like if a man would be like, hey, my kid's got T-ball, would he get the same reaction from his counterparts that a woman would?
In my experience, and I don't want to speak for all female chefs, but I'm sure there are some that will resonate with this. In my experience in Vegas, anyways, I won't throw out the whole world, but in my experience in Vegas, you have a male chef and a female chef, and the male chef would be like, oh, my kid's got T-ball tonight. I'm going to head out, an hour early. And everybody claps for him. Wow, you're a good dad. You're balancing being a chef and having a challenging career, but also being a dad. But then you have, a mom who's like, hey guys, my kid has a solo and band tonight. I'm going to cut out an hour early. And it's like, how dare you? Why would you leave early? Why is this a thing? Why do you think that a band concert is worthy of you leaving early? Did you put in PTO for your missed absence? And it's like, it felt to me like I was always being questioned for why I was leaving early, if I was leaving early, whereas some of my male counterparts were patted on the back for being involved in their kids' lives.
So it's definitely one of those fields where you have to double your effort to like prove your worthiness.
I did. I always felt like I had to double my effort, but I always felt like I was juggling, different types of balls. I think I said it to a friend recently, like is my kid's band concert a glass ball, or is the fact that he could have the flu next week a glass ball? What is gonna drop? What is gonna cause me to drop it? And is it gonna be worth it?
Mm,
Right? Do I want to maybe not leave to go to the band concert because maybe next week he falls down the stairs and breaks his wrist? That is something I would probably need to leave for. Is this band concert going to be something that causes an issue that makes next week not possible?
right. You kind of have to like pick and choose your battles.
Pick
Like
and
if I miss
choose.
out on this, then maybe I won't lose my job if my kid gets sick, or if I choose to go and enjoy this moment of my child's life that I'm not going to get back and he gets sick next week, that cost me my career.
Correct. And that's one of the main reasons why I switched to the private chef sector. I'll never forget it. I literally was working with this family, I think a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, and I was like, my kid has an award ceremony. It was like the middle of the afternoon. And I just asked. I don't even know why I asked. I typically wouldn't have asked to leave, but I was like, would you mind if I clock out for an hour and go see her get this award? And they were like, for sure. Don't hesitate to ask. And that was kind of the validation that I needed to know that me leaving the restaurant industry wasn't like me running from anything. It was just what fit best for my life. What fit best with me trying to be the best stepmom or the best mom or the best wife that I could be.
That's really great that they gave you that kind of support where you didn't feel like you had to choose.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and maybe even learned something. Please do me a favor. If you have an Instagram, go give Chef Amy a follow on her pages so you can follow her business, Saucy, as well as her personal chef experience. Her Instagram handles are listed in the description of this episode. She also has a Facebook page called Saucy the Sauce you can check out as well. If you want updates about the show, please follow the show on Instagram at Pink Plus Podcast. And don't forget to follow us on whatever platform you're listening on so that you can get alerted when new episodes are released. I hope you have a great week, and I'll catch you next time.